What would you do if your own family turned their back on your dying child? This is a powerful tale of betrayal, sacrifice, and ultimate revenge, where love isn't defined by blood, but by action. Stay with us to witness a journey that will break your heart and then heal it. I used to think that pain, the deep kind that settles quietly inside you, fades with time. I thought if I just worked hard enough, built a good life, kept my head down, maybe one day the ache would dissolve into nothing. But I was wrong. Some wounds don't heal. They simply wait until one day something tears them wide open again. My name is Claire Simmons, and I'm 33 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, where I run a small kitchenware design company. My husband Ben is a freelance web developer. We live a quiet life, the kind where your mornings start with warm coffee and end with your child's laughter echoing down the hallway. Our son, Noah, is 10. He's smart, thoughtful, and curious, always fiddling with puzzles, asking questions most grown-ups don't even think to ask. On the outside, everything about our life looks peaceful. But there's a part of me, buried deep under the years, that still remembers what it was like to never be enough. I grew up in San Diego, in a home that looked perfect to outsiders. My parents, Douglas and Meredith, were successful, respected in the community. My dad worked in finance, my mom managed a local arts nonprofit. But our family had a secret rule. My younger sister, Rachel, mattered more. Rachel was always the center of attention. She was pretty, outgoing, and people naturally gravitated toward her. Even as a child, I knew that no matter how much I achieved, the spotlight would always belong to her. When I scored straight A's, my mom barely looked up from her phone. When Rachel got a B in her theater class, there were flowers, cake, and a dinner out. The first time I realized I was invisible to them was the day I graduated from design school with honors. I waited outside the ceremony, cap still on my head, my diploma clutched tight, watching other families crowd around their kids with hugs and tears. Mine never showed up. I remember calling my mom afterward. Her only response was, "Oh right, that was today? I'm sure you did fine." It hurt, but I told myself I'd move on, and eventually I did. I moved to Portland, started from scratch. At first, it was tough. I worked freelance gigs, rented a tiny office next to a dry cleaner, and slowly built my company, piece by piece. That's when I met Ben. He wasn't flashy or loud like the men my sister dated. He was thoughtful, kind. He once told me, "You don't have to perform for me, Claire. I like you exactly as you are." It was the first time anyone had said that to me. We got married in a small backyard ceremony, no grand speeches, no expensive flowers. Just a few close friends, laughter, and music. My parents didn't attend. They were in Italy with Rachel, celebrating her big break as a part-time model for a boutique brand. I sent them an invite anyway. I never got a reply, but I was happy. Truly. Ben and I had Noah a couple of years later, and our world became brighter. He was full of energy, always building little towers out of spoons and plastic lids, asking questions like, "What's the heaviest thing in the universe?" And "Why do people lie?" And then everything changed. It started on a regular Thursday. Noah was at school, and I was sketching designs in my studio when I got the call. He had fainted during gym class. I rushed to the school, my heart pounding, and found him in the nurse's office. Pale, confused, frightened. Ben met us at the hospital. Tests followed. Hours of waiting. And finally, the doctor sat us down, face serious. He said Noah had long QT syndrome, a rare heart rhythm disorder. It could cause sudden fainting, seizures, or even death if not treated. He needed surgery to implant a defibrillator device. The cost, $126,000. Ben's hand gripped mine so tightly it hurt. We nodded, asked questions, tried to stay calm. But the truth hit hard. We had some savings, but not enough. We had just finished paying for home repairs after a pipe burst in the kitchen. Worse, we'd recently been scammed in a phishing attack, nearly $40,000 gone overnight. The bank had frozen our credit, and the case was still under investigation. A loan was out of the question. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Noah's room, watching his chest rise and fall. I kept thinking, what if something happened to him and I hadn't done everything I could? And then I thought of them, my parents. I didn't want to ask. Every bone in my body screamed not to. But when your child's life is at stake, pride becomes a luxury. I told Ben I'd go to them, just to talk. Just to try. Coincidentally, they were throwing a huge party in Seattle, a lavish retirement cruise celebration aboard a rented yacht. $70,000, according to my cousin. The guest list included clients, local celebrities, even a food blogger who had once featured my sister in a brunch review. I wasn't invited. Still, I packed Noah's medical files into a folder, put on the neatest dress I owned, and made my way to the harbor. The moment I stepped on that yacht, I knew I didn't belong. Waiters in white uniforms. Laughter bubbling up from the upper deck. Crystal glasses, gold ribbons, chandeliers hanging from tinted ceilings. I scanned the crowd and found them, my parents, glowing with pride, surrounded by well-dressed strangers. And Rachel, of course, snapping photos for her social media feed. I walked up, quietly, holding the file in my hands. "Mom," I said. "Dad, can I talk to you for a moment?" My mother turned, her face tight. "Claire, what are you doing here?" I took a breath. "It's Noah. He's sick. He needs surgery. I don't have enough money. I just need help. Please just listen." My father raised a hand. "Claire, this isn't the time. We have guests. Important guests." My mother folded her arms. "You always show up at the worst moments." I swallowed. "He could die if we don't do something. I'm not asking for much. Just a loan, I'll pay it back." She cut me off. "We've spent a fortune on this cruise. You should have been more responsible with your finances." And then Rachel chimed in, flipping her hair and sipping champagne. "Maybe if you weren't such a drama magnet, Claire, you'd have figured this out without barging in here." That was it. The last drop. I stood there, surrounded by strangers and champagne and laughter, realizing that my parents had chosen image over their grandson's life. I walked away, not because I was strong, but because I was done begging. I didn't cry until I reached the parking lot. I called Ben and told him everything. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "We'll figure it out. On our own. We don't need them." And in that moment I knew. Our real family didn't include them. After that night, something inside me shifted. I didn't know if it was anger, heartbreak, or something else, but it burned steady in my chest. I had begged them. I had stood in front of my own parents, holding proof of their grandson's condition, and they looked through me like I didn't matter. Like Noah didn't matter. I'll never forget the way my mother's eyes flicked back toward her guests mid-conversation, as if I was just a noise in the background. Or the way Rachel smirked like this was all some performance I was staging for sympathy. That night, I made a decision. If they wouldn't help us, then I would find a way on my own. But I would never ask them for anything again. The next morning, Ben and I sat at the kitchen table in silence. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He had stayed up all night researching emergency assistance programs, calling hospitals, looking into grants. Every time I glanced at him, I was reminded that even in the worst moment of our lives, he was beside me. No judgment. No, I told you so. Just quiet strength. "I'm selling the car," he said. "I can take the bus to my gigs for a while. It's not a big deal." I nodded, biting my lip. "I'll sell my studio equipment. The 3D printer, the scanner, the old prototype sets, someone will want them." We didn't wait. That same afternoon, we posted everything online. Ben listed his car. I packed up my machines. I even took off my grandmother's wedding ring, the only thing I had left from her, and listed it under heirloom jewelry. It felt like a betrayal, but I reminded myself this was for Noah. For his life. The first few days, people came and went, some friendly, some not. A woman in her 60s bought my drafting desk and whispered as she left, "I hope whatever you're going through gets better soon." That made me cry. Not out loud. Just quiet tears that fell while I was wiping dust off the empty corner of my studio. By the end of the third day, we had gathered nearly $30,000. It was still far from what we needed, but it was something. I reached out to old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't want to ask for money. I just explained the situation and asked them to share our donation page. Some ignored it. Some shared it with a polite emoji and no words.
But a few surprised me.
One night, I got a message from Lena, my old college roommate. We hadn't spoken in forever. She sent $500 and wrote, "Claire, you were always the kindest person I knew. I hope this helps Noah. Praying for you." I stared at that message for a long time. The next day, Jordan, a past client from a kitchen renovation project, showed up at my door with an envelope. He was in his 20s, fresh out of school, when I worked with him. "This is all I've got right now," he said. "But I believe you helped build something great for me once. Let me do the same." Inside the envelope was $280 in cash. I wanted to give it back. He looked like he didn't have much himself. But he insisted, then walked away without waiting for thanks. Then came the biggest surprise, Mr. Castillo. He was Ben's old mentor, a retired tech CEO we hadn't spoken to in a couple of years. We had invited him to our wedding, but he couldn't attend. He reached out after hearing from Ben through a mutual contact. They talked for an hour. When Ben hung up, he looked stunned. "He's going to cover the rest," Ben said slowly. "The full amount, $68,000. He said, "Your family isn't just who you're born with." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, hands shaking, the air rushing out of my lungs like I had been holding my breath for days. 3 days later, we handed the hospital the full payment. They scheduled Noah's surgery for the next morning. I remember holding his hand as they wheeled him down the hallway, his eyes looking up at me, so calm. "Mom," he whispered, "don't be scared. I'll be okay. I'll fix my heart, and then we'll finish that puzzle, okay?" I nodded, smiling through tears. "We'll finish it together." The surgery took hours. I sat in that waiting room gripping his favorite blue hoodie, rocking back and forth in the stiff plastic chair. I kept replaying every moment, every laugh, every bedtime story, every morning pancake we made together. Ben sat beside me, silent, just holding my hand. Finally, the doctor came out. He smiled. "It went well. He's stable. He's going to be okay." I broke down. Ben hugged me tightly, and I cried into his shoulder, not because I was weak, but because I had held it all in for too long. Noah woke up a few hours later, groggy but smiling. "Did we do it?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. "We did it." Over the next few days, he recovered slowly. The staff at the hospital were kind, patient. Nurses brought him juice boxes and silly stickers. The hallways smelled like antiseptic and warm soup, and I spent most nights in the chair beside his bed. Every beep from the monitor scared me at first, but with time, it became familiar, comforting, even. When we finally brought him home, it was like stepping back into a new life. One we had fought for with every bit of strength we had left. But I wasn't the same woman who had walked into that yacht party begging for help. I returned to my studio the next week, now nearly empty, and stood in the middle of the room. I could have felt defeated. I had nothing left, no equipment, barely any clients. But I didn't feel broken. I felt ready. That fire that started the night my family turned their backs on me hadn't gone out. It had grown. I reopened my company under a new name, Heartwood Designs. I spent the next few months working from my kitchen table, reaching out to old clients, learning new techniques, improving my marketing. I watched business tutorials late into the night, sometimes with Noah asleep beside me. One day, I recorded a short video about why I started designing kitchenware, how, growing up, no one ever gathered in our kitchen. It was always cold, sterile. But in my home, the kitchen was the heart. A place for laughter, love, safety. That video went viral. Orders started coming in. One interview led to another. And suddenly my name, my company was being noticed. Not because I had a famous family, not because someone paved the way for me, but because I had built it. From nothing. From pain. From truth. I didn't tell anyone about what had happened that night on the yacht. I didn't mention the rejection or the exact words they used.
But I didn't have to.
Someone else did it for me. A guest at the party had snapped a photo of me, standing near the deck, holding that file labeled Noah Medical Records, being turned away. The photo made its way to social media, then to a journalist. And suddenly, my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was everywhere.
I didn't expect it to happen like that.
I had moved on, or at least I thought I had. I never wanted to make a spectacle of what my family did. I wasn't out for revenge. But when the photo surfaced, everything changed. It was a blurry image, taken from across the deck, but it was clear enough to see my face, the sorrow, the desperation. I was holding the folder labeled Noah Medical Records, standing alone near the edge of the yacht while everyone else celebrated. I didn't even know someone had taken it, let alone shared it.
But once it was out there, the internet did the rest.
A journalist picked it up and tracked the story. She didn't name names in the first article, but she pieced together enough. Mentions of my company, the surgery, the cruise. She added a quote from my podcast interview. I once asked for help to save my son's life. The people I loved most turned away. That moment changed me forever. The headline read, Family hosts luxury yacht party while grandson's life hangs in the balance. That was all it took. At first, I tried to stay quiet. I didn't want drama, but people started connecting the dots. A few who had been at the party commented anonymously online. It wasn't long before Rachel's name came up. Then Douglas and Meredith Simmons. People remembered their yacht party. Someone posted photos of Rachel in a gold dress holding a champagne flute, laughing, with the caption, Celebrating Legacy. The contrast was too much. The backlash was brutal and fast. Rachel lost brand deals within days. Companies didn't want to associate with someone the public saw as heartless. Her influencer contracts dropped one by one. People commented on her posts with broken heart emojis and questions like, Is this the sister you ignored? My parents faced something worse. The retirement fund they had boasted about? It came under review after someone dug into how the cruise was financed. Turns out, some of the funds were traced to unreported income and a questionable business expense they wrote off for tax deductions. It opened an investigation. They tried to stay quiet too, but their silence only fueled a fire. I didn't speak publicly about it. I didn't need to. The truth had already taken root, and it spread without me saying another word. People began to reach out, not just strangers offering support, but others who had been hurt by their own families. They sent me messages like, Your story gave me strength, or I finally stood up for myself after reading what you went through. It was overwhelming, honestly. I didn't feel like a hero. I was just a mother who had done what any mother would do. Then a letter came in the mail. A plain white envelope with my mother's handwriting on the front. I stood by the door holding it, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to rip it up, but I opened it. Inside were 2 pages of lined paper, written in careful script. The letter was shaky, full of emotion, but the words were clear. Claire, we have lost everything. The house, the accounts, gone. The store is closed. Rachel is back living with us. Your father is struggling and I don't know how to fix any of it. We're asking, not as parents who failed you, but as people who are desperate. Please help us. We need $100,000 to save the house from foreclosure. We're your family. I stared at the letter for a long time. I remembered everything. Noah in the hospital, Ben selling his car, Mr. Castillo's kindness, Lena's message, Jordan's envelope. The people who had helped us weren't family by blood, but they were family in every way that mattered. And now these people, who once told me Noah's condition wasn't their problem, who poured money into shrimp cocktails and a cruise band, wanted me to save them? I didn't react right away. I let the letter sit on my desk for 3 days. Then I wrote back. Noah is alive because strangers cared. You didn't. I mailed it and didn't look back. A few weeks later, the press caught wind of the foreclosure. Their mansion in San Diego, once the pride of every holiday brag, was listed for sale under bank repossession. A news outlet ran a small piece with the headline, From Prestige to Silence, The Fall of the Simmons Legacy. I didn't feel joy, just a strange kind of stillness, like the final page of a book I had read too many times. Ben asked me if I was okay. I told him yes, and I meant it. In the middle of all that chaos, something beautiful happened. Heartwood designs grew beyond what I imagined. Orders flooded in. I hired a small team. Jordan became one of my designers. I offered Lena a consulting spot to help with customer experience. Every success felt like a tribute to the people who had shown up when it mattered most. A few months later, I did something I had dreamed of but never believed possible. I opened a storefront and workshop, a bright, sunlit space in a renovated corner building near the heart of Portland. We held a quiet ribbon-cutting ceremony. Noah was there, of course, cutting the ribbon with a big pair of red scissors, grinning ear to ear. "I helped make this, didn't I?" he asked. I knelt beside him. "You did, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." A few days after the opening, I got another letter, this time from Rachel. It was short. One paragraph. "Claire, you've made your point. We all made mistakes, but this punishment has gone too far. You have everything now. Can't you just move on?" I didn't reply, because I had moved on. But moving on didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean opening the door again to people who showed me, time and again, that their love came with conditions. Still, the letters didn't stop. Another came from my father. Then one more from my mother. This one handwritten but shaky, almost desperate. They said they were going to lose the small apartment they'd moved into, that they couldn't find stable work, that their savings were gone, that even Rachel had started working a retail job just to cover groceries. I sat on my porch with Ben, reading the latest one out loud. "They want $200,000 now," I said, shaking my head. "To start over." He looked at me carefully. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I whispered. But deep down, maybe I did. They had chosen their pride over their grandson. Over me. They taught me that blood isn't always family. And yet, here they were, expecting help, not because they had changed, but because they had nothing left. And for once, I had the power, not to hurt them, but to decide, to draw the line. They had written me off when I needed them most. Now, it was my turn to write the ending. I thought long and hard about what to do next. The truth was, I didn't hate them. I didn't lie awake at night plotting revenge or daydreaming about their downfall. I didn't even want them to suffer. But I also couldn't forget. I couldn't erase the image of myself on that yacht, clutching Noah's medical records while my own mother turned her back to me, sipping champagne. I couldn't pretend that hadn't happened. And now they wanted help, desperately, shamelessly, as if those memories had no weight. Still, I couldn't ignore the letter. I kept it in the drawer of my desk, unread for 2 days. Then one evening, after putting Noah to bed, I pulled it out again. The words were nearly trembling off the page. My mother had written it by hand, just like when I was a child, and she used to leave Rachel little notes in her lunchbox. Not me, only Rachel. She said they were about to lose their apartment, that their retirement was gone, that Rachel had moved out and was no longer speaking to them. My father, she said, had been denied for a job at a local hardware store. She didn't beg, but it was close. The final line said, "You're our daughter. If there's any mercy left in you, please help us." Mercy. That word sat heavy in my mind. I told Ben. We talked about it for hours. He listened like he always did, quiet, thoughtful, never pushing me in either direction. Then I made my decision. 2 days later, I sent a formal letter to their address. Inside, I told them that if they truly needed the money, they could come to my office in person. I gave a date and time. I told them I would provide the full amount they needed, $200,000, but under one condition. This would be the last time. No more letters. No more contact. No more pretending we were still something we weren't. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the office early. I had the conference room set up. Clean, quiet, sunlight pouring through the window. On the table sat a black briefcase, locked, with the exact amount they had asked for. I didn't want to check. I wanted them to see the weight of it, to feel it. They arrived 10 minutes late. When they walked in, I barely recognized them. My mother's face looked drawn and pale. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was now tied back loosely. My father walked slower than I remembered, a cane in one hand. They didn't look like the people who had turned me away on a yacht surrounded by laughter. They looked small, tired.
defeated.
Claire, my mother started, her voice cracking. Thank you for seeing us. I didn't answer. I just nodded toward the table. They looked at the briefcase, but didn't touch it yet. I want to be very clear, I said. This isn't forgiveness. This is a transaction. You asked for help. I'm providing it. That's all. My father cleared his throat. We know we made mistakes. We were blind and unkind. No, I interrupted. You were cruel. When no one needed you most, you looked at me like I was a nuisance. You turned your backs. I won't forget that. Ever. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We were wrong. We know that now. I looked at them and said the one thing I had waited years to say. You're not my family. Not anymore. The silence that followed was long and sharp. Then I pushed the briefcase toward them.
Take it.
But after this, we're done. You will not contact me again. You will not send letters. You will not show up at my house. Do you understand? They both nodded, slowly. My father picked up the briefcase. My mother opened her mouth like she wanted to say something more, but I stood up, and she stopped. Goodbye, I said. I hope you find peace. But you won't find it here. I watched them leave through the glass wall. My mother looked back once. My father didn't. I sat back down, alone in the room, and for a moment, I didn't move. I felt no joy. No victory. Just peace. A clean break. The final thread cut. That night, I told Ben everything. He just held me and whispered, You did what was right. For you. For us. A week later, I was back to work. Hartwood Designs had just secured a new contract with a major retail chain. We were expanding. I had hired 3 new designers, opened a second location, and was in talks to release our own line of eco-friendly cookware. Noah was thriving. He had joined a robotics club and was building a remote-controlled car. Every night, he'd bring me some tiny new gadget or drawing and say, Look what I made today. And I would smile, because I knew none of it would have happened if we hadn't fought so hard. One afternoon, as we sat in the backyard watching him race his car across the grass, Ben looked at me and said, Do you ever wonder if they'll try again? I thought about it. Maybe. But they won't get in. Not anymore. He nodded. And if they do? Then they'll meet someone who no longer needs them. Because that's the truth. I had needed them once. Desperately. But I learned the hardest way that needing someone doesn't mean they'll be there. I learned that family isn't just DNA or last names. It's the people who show up, who listen, who sacrifice when it matters most. Lena. Jordan. Mr. Castillo.
Ben.
Even strangers online who gave $10 they probably couldn't spare. They were my family. I never told Noah everything.
Not yet.
One day, maybe. For now, I just wanted him to grow up in a home where he never had to question his worth. Where every birthday mattered. Every win was celebrated. And no failure was too small to receive kindness. Months passed. Seasons changed. I wrote the final payment on our mortgage. Hartwood Designs made its first $1 million in sales. We moved into a slightly larger home. Nothing too flashy. Just enough space for Noah's inventions and a garden out back. Sometimes I'd think about my parents. Where they were. What they were doing. Whether they regretted what they had done. But I didn't linger. That chapter was over. And then one evening, Noah curled up beside me on the couch, holding one of his puzzles. Mom, he asked, can I tell you something? Of course. I think you're the strongest person I know. I smiled, pulled him close, and kissed the top of his head. I had to be, I whispered, because I had to protect you. And in that moment, I knew that every step, every tear, every painful goodbye, it had all been worth it. Because I had built a life of truth, of love, of strength. Not from where I came from, but from who I chose to become.